Floyd, what's that over there? Oh, shit. The man's voice speaking these words was vaguely familiar. But the words themselves were just a disconnected snip of dialogue, the kind of thing you heard when you were channel surfing with a remote. There was no one named Floyd in her life. Still, that was the start. Even before she saw the little girl in the red pinafore, there were those disconnected words. But it was the little girl who brought it on strong. Uh-oh, I'm getting that feeling, Carol said. The girl in the pinafore was in front of a country market called Carson's. Beer, wine, grog, fresh bait, lottery. Crouched down with her butt between her ankles in the bright red apron dress, tucked between her thighs, playing with a doll. The doll was yellow-haired and dirty. The kind that's round and stuffed and boneless in body. What feeling? Bill asked. You know, the one you can only say what it is in French. Help me here. Deja vu, he said. That's it, she said, and turned to look at the little girl one more time. She'll have the doll by one leg, Carol thought, holding it upside down by one leg with its grimy yellow hair hanging down. But the little girl had abandoned the doll on the store's splintery gray steps, and had gone over to look at the dogs caged up in the back of the station wagon. Then Bill and Carol Shelton went around a curve in the road, and the store was out of sight. How much farther? Carol asked. Bill looked at her with one eyebrow raised, and his mouth dimpled at one corner. Left eyebrow, right dimple, always the same. They looked that said, You think I'm amused, but I'm really irritated. For the 90 trillionth time or so time in the marriage, I'm really irritated. You don't know that, though, because you can only see about 2 inches into me, and then your vision fails. But she had better vision than he realized. It was one of the secrets of the marriage. Probably he had a few secrets of his own. And there were, of course, the ones they kept together. I don't know, he said. I've never been here. But you're sure we're on the right road. Once you get over the causeway and into Sanibel Island, there's only one, he said. It goes across to Captiva, and there it ends. But before it does, we'll come to Palm House. That I promise you. The arch in his eyebrow began to flatten. The dimple began to fill in. He was returning to what she thought of as the great level. She had come to dislike the great level, too, but not as much as the eyebrow and the dimple, as a sarcastic way of saying, "Excuse me?" when you said something he considered stupid, or his habit of pooching out his lower lip when he wanted to appear thoughtful and deliberate. Bill? Do you know anyone named Floyd? There was a Floyd Denning. He and I ran the downstairs snack bar at Christ the Redeemer in our senior year. I told you about him, didn't I? He stole the Coke money one Friday and spent the weekend in New York with his girlfriend. They suspended him and expelled her. What made you think of him? I don't know, she said. Easier than telling him that Floyd with whom Bill had gone to high school wasn't the Floyd the voice in her head was speaking to. At least she didn't think it was. Second honeymoon? That's what you call this? She thought, looking at the palms that lined Highway 867, a white bird that stalked along the shoulder like an angry preacher, and a sign that read Seminole Wildlife Park, bring a car full for only $10. Florida the Sunshine State, Florida the Hospitality State, not to mention Florida the Second Honeymoon State, Florida where Bill Shelton and Carol Shelton, the former Carol O'Neill of Lynn, Massachusetts, came on their first honeymoon 25 years before. Only that was on the other side, the Atlantic side, at a little cabin colony, and there were cockroaches in the brew drawers. He couldn't stop touching me. That was all right, though. In those days I wanted to be touched. Hell, I wanted to be torched like Atlanta and Gone with the Wind. And he torched me, rebuilt me, torched me again. Now it's silver 25 is silver, and sometimes I get that feeling. They were approaching a curve, and she thought, 3 crosses on the right side of the road, 2 small ones flanking a bigger one. The small ones are clapped together wood. The one in the middle is white birch with a picture on it, a tiny photograph of the 17-year-old boy who lost control of his car on this curve one drunk night, that his last drunk night, and this is where his girlfriend and her girlfriends marked the spot. Bill drove around the curve. A pair of black crows, plump and shiny, lifted off from something past it on the macadam in a splat of blood. The birds had eaten so well that Carol wasn't sure they were going to get out of the way until they did. There were no crosses, not on the left, not on the right, just roadkill in the middle, a woodchuck or something, now passing beneath a luxury car that had never been north of the Mason-Dixon line. "Floyd, what's that over there?" "What's wrong? Huh?" She looked at him, bewildered, feeling a little wild. "You're sitting bolt upright. Got a cramp on your back?" "Just a slight one." She settled back by degrees. "I had that feeling again. The déjà vu." "Is it gone?" "Yeah," she said, but she was lying. It had retreated a little, but that was all. She had this before, but never so continuously. It came up and went down, but it didn't go away. She'd been aware of it ever since that thing about Floyd started knocking around in her head, and then the little girl in the red pinafore. But really, hadn't she felt something before either of those things? Hadn't it actually started when they came down the steps of the Lear 35 into the hammering heat of the Fort Myers sunshine? Or even before, en route from Boston? They were coming to an intersection. Overhead was a flashing yellow light, and she thought, to the right is a used car lot and a sign for the Centerville Community Theater. Then she thought, no, it'll look like the crosses that weren't there. It's a strong feeling, but a false feeling. Here was an intersection. On the right there was a used car lot. Palmadale Motors. Carol felt a real jump at that. A stab of something sharper than disquiet. She told herself to quit being stupid. There had been car lots all over Florida, and if you protected one at every intersection, sooner or later the law of averages made you a prophet. It was a trick mediums had been using for hundreds of years. Besides, there's no theater sign. But there was another sign. It was Mary, the Mother of God, the ghost of all her childhood days, holding out her hands the way she did on the medallion Carol's grandmother had given her for her 10th birthday. Her grandmother had pressed it into her hand and looped the chain around her finger, saying, "Wear her always as you grow, because all the hard days are coming." She had worn it all right. At Our Lady of Angels Grammar and Middle School she had worn it, then at St. Vincent's de Paul High. She wore the medal until breasts grew around it like ordinary miracles, and then someplace, probably on the class trip to Hampton Beach, she had lost it. Coming home on the bus, she had tongue-kissed for the first time. Botch Saucy had been the boy, and she had been able to taste the cotton candy he'd eaten. Mary on that long-gone medallion, and Mary on this billboard had exactly the same look. The one that made you feel guilty of thinking impure thoughts, even all when you were thinking about was peanut butter sandwich. Beneath Mary was a sign that said, "Mother of Mercy Charities, help the Florida homeless. Won't you help us?" "Hey there, Mary. What's the story?" More than one voice this time. Many voices. Girls' voices. Chanting ghost voices. These were ordinary miracles. These were also ordinary ghosts. You found these things out as you got older. "What's wrong with you?" She knew that voice as well as she did the eyebrow and dimple look. Bill's "I'm only pretending to be pissed" tone of voice. The one that meant he really was pissed, at least a little. "Nothing." She gave him the best smile she could manage. "You really don't seem like yourself. Maybe you shouldn't have slept on the plane." "You're probably right," she said. And not just to be agreeable, either. After all, how many women got a second honeymoon on Captiva Island for their 25th anniversary? Round trip on a chartered Learjet? 10 days at one of those places where your money was no good? At least until MasterCard coughed up the bill at the end of the month. And if you wanted a massage, a big Swedish babe would come and pummel you in your 6-room beach house. Things had been different at the start. Bill, whom she first met at a crosstown high school dance, and then met again at college 3 years later, another ordinary miracle, had begun their married life working as a janitor. because there was no openings in the computer industry. It was 1973, and computers were essentially going nowhere, and they were living in a grotty place in Revere. Not on the beach, but close to it. And all night people kept going up the stairs to buy drugs from the two sallow creatures who lived in the apartment above them, and listened endlessly to dopey records from the 60s. Carol used to lie awake, waiting for the shouting to start, thinking, "We won't ever get out of here. We'll grow old and die within earshot of cream and blue cheer and the dodgem cars down on the beach." Bill, exhausted at the end of his shift, would sleep through the noise, lying on his side, sometimes with one hand on her hip. And when it wasn't there, she often put it there, especially if the creatures upstairs were arguing with their customers. Bill was all she had. Her parents had practically disowned her when she married him. He was a Catholic, but the wrong sort of Catholic. Grandma had asked why she wanted to go with that boy, when anyone could tell he was shanty. How could she fall for his foolish talk? Why did she want to break her father's heart? What could she say?